Hey everyone. Today I'm going to talk about how stressful and challenging a real estate deal can be. I remember a few years ago, I was selling a property on the South Shore whose address and occupants will remain nameless due to privacy rules. I sold the house twice. The first time, I listed the property and I found the buyer. And the challenge was when they did the inspection, there were a lot of things wrong with the property. But at the price that the buyer was paying, he was pretty happy. So that wasn't the problem. The problem was the divorced sellers, one who lived in another state and the other one who lived in the house with his unemployed children. So getting him to get me permission to get into the property, to do open houses and showings, that's where the challenge was. And what happened was it took me several months to convince him, because every time he was on the phone with his attorney, he was paying for that. Even though he was divorced, the seller wife wanted to cash in. And this gentleman was living in the house. So to get him to move was a real challenge. And so finally, when I kept telling him, you're still married, but not to your wife, you're married to the attorney. Because every time you speak to him, he's billing you. So it doesn't make any sense. Move on. So finally, it connected to his brain and it connected to his pocketbook. And he decided, finally let me in. We did some open houses and we started to have people come in. And I did, like I said, I located the buyer and everything was good. So finally, we came to an agreed and accepted. We did the inspection. Everything was fine. The mortgage was approved. So the gentleman came in, and unfortunately, there were things that I didn't know about this particular buyer, but I'll talk about that in a little while. So lo and behold, we did some rentals for that particular owner. And then several years later, after he moved in, he did some renovations. He called me up and said, Phil, I think we need to sell. I'm thinking, why does he want to sell now? He just moved in 3 or 4, maybe 5 years ago. So I go and see him. I do a presentation and I find out, he tells me, well, we're already with somebody in New York City, but I have to do all the work. I said, well, what's the reason? Well, I'm saving the commission. I said, listen, you're not saving the commission because any buyer that comes in and knows that you don't have a broker representing you, they're subtracting X amount of money, could be 6%, whatever it is. You're not saving any money. The buyer's subtracting that, and then they're subtracting another 8% as per National Association of Realtors, who did a survey on this. And people are not saving any money not using a realtor, especially a qualified, knowledgeable realtor with years of experience like me. So he realized that he didn't want to do open houses. He didn't want to get involved in the whole negotiation. I said, well, where are you saving money then? You may be negotiating a price that is lower than what a realtor like me would be able to provide. So he dehired that person and he hired me. So we did our open houses. We had no issues with that. We finally lined up a buyer with another agent and he got a good price on it. But here's the challenge. When the buyer came in to do the inspection, that was fine, but the appraisal, that was the problem. Because the appraiser came in and everything looked okay. And then he came out and said, oh, wait a second. You don't have a CO on that supposed shed, which he used for his car. And he says, oh, I got a CO. Show it to me. And that's a question I should have asked in the beginning, but I trusted him. And you do that. You got to see the paperwork. So I learned something very quickly. And I have a lot of years of experience, but I have a certain trust factor with people. That's done. It's not a matter of trust. Show me the paperwork. Whether it's an extension, whether it's anything that wasn't on the original survey, show me the paperwork. So he admitted he had to go out and get the CO. I said, it's going to take months. You'll never keep this buyer intact. So he says, all right, you know what? I'm going to take it down. So he must have hired a number of people and he took the entire, this wasn't a shed, this was a garage. So he took it down. I thought everything would be fine. The appraiser comes back and he says, Great that you took it down. You got all this debris. It's got to be removed. And you have to take and level the ground so it meets the driveway. Wonderful. So I came out on a Sunday and I helped the buyer's father, I think was in the landscaping business. And I spent a good portion of the day there feathering and smoothing out the soil and make sure that it met the driveway. And then again, I spent a good 6 hours there. And then what happened is the appraiser comes back and he finally approves everything. So when people say, oh, it's very easy for you to get a buyer, you know what? It's not always that easy. And the things that you have to do to keep the deal going would shake up the most unbelievable individual who's in the business. It would shake you up because you have to have thick skin. You got to know what you're doing. You have to be able to convey information that people are asking questions about. And if you don't know something, you got to find out. So it was a lesson to me. Never again will I not believe people, or will I believe people until they show me the paperwork. So when I go throughout the house, I want to make sure, did you do any extensions that are not CO'd? Did you add anything, a patio? Did you add a deck that's above 18 inches? Less than 18 inches, you don't need a CO, from what I remember from Nassau County. Anything above 18 inches, you need a certificate of occupancy. So if anybody's built a deck, a patio, put in a pool, anything like that that's not original, you got to get a certificate of occupancy. Otherwise, your deal may go south. So it ended up, everything went smooth. We went to the closing. What I found out afterwards, this couple wasn't even married and they had a child. And so there was a lot of disagreements and arguments after the closing. And I've stayed in touch with one individual because the other individual doesn't want to deal with me because they felt that, oh, I should have told me the information that I needed. But the other individual, the husband, I'm still in touch with because he knows I did a great job. And unfortunately, I feel bad that they had to sell the house. But listen, this is what happened. So that's my story, and it's one of many. I remember the first property I ever listed. This was 30-something years ago. I actually helped the owner paint his bathroom. He says, you help me paint my bathroom, and I'll give you the listing. And I did. Would I do that again? Yeah, I might. I'd pay somebody to have it done. But the thing is, not a simple business. There are all sorts of curveballs and problems that arise that you can't always anticipate. But when it comes to COs, I know what to do now. I know what questions to ask. And that's important because it would save me a lot of time. But then again, that guy had to take his garage down. It wasn't a shed, it was a garage. And, be able to know what to do. And you got to be able to cater people. And you got to be a consultant. You got to be a guider. The process doesn't start until you find that buyer, and then the appraisal gets done, all those things that happen in between that point. And so I think we get paid more when we find the buyer than to find the buyer, because finding a buyer in Long Island now is still pretty good. It's a pretty strong market. Prices are still going up. I don't see an end in sight because we're at a 30-year low with inventory. And the interest rates are causing those who can't afford to buy in Long Island, New York, which many of the people are doing, we're losing more population than we're gaining. Or you have to settle on a co-op or a condo if you can't afford a house. But the challenges are still there, whether it's a condo or a co-op. You got to pass the co-op board. The debt to income ratio has to be at a certain level. Your income has to be at a certain level. What that level is, we never know because we don't know what the board's going to do. So there are challenges. I don't care what kind of property that you have, that you're selling or that you want to buy. You have to make sure the buyer is qualified. You have to make sure the seller has all their paperwork in order. And then hopefully you'll come to a happy ending, the closing, and you get a check because that's what we get paid for. It's the process from the start and the tumultuous process that goes through it and to get to the closing. It's not easy. It's a phenomenal business. I'm always looking to take on more agents, but you know what? You got to have thick skin. If you don't have your job, start a side business. But that's the story. So I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you want to see more, like me, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video, which might be in the upper left or right-hand corner, depending on what my technician has done. But you take care and you have a lucrative day.